Hey, what's happening everyone? Pragmatic Addict here. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review. So, I just got out of the theater from watching Bottoms. Now, seeing the buzz for this movie and like the trailer that I saw, which I am just gonna say I didn't really grasp like what the movie was actually going for, even after seeing the trailer and reading the plot, but seeing the reviews and seeing what I saw that they could have been doing with this movie, I was pretty excited for it, man. So I'm just going to talk about the plot real quick. So the plot for Bottoms is that there are two queer best friends in high school, and after something happens where they assault a football player, they make up a story to get out of trouble, saying that they are actually trying to learn self-defense and thus making a fight club at their school. Now, what ends up happening is that this fight club that they're making, they also end up going along with it, like actually committing to it because they want to hook up with their high school crushes. But what ends up going wrong is that all these people that end up joining the fight club end up joining it for different reasons, and it basically just becomes out of hand, and obviously there are consequences with, you know, their story and with what they actually want out of it. So just right there, I'm like, okay, at first hand, the plot wouldn't seem like too much of an idea where I'm like, oh my god, this is genius, we gotta do this. But seeing what took place in this movie is a lot for anybody expecting to see an 88-minute comedy. Just strap in, dude. This movie's a lot, so let's talk about it. So the first thing I will say is that right off the bat, everything like had me going, man. I had butterflies with everything. I mean, the atmosphere, the chemistry, the comedy, even the script, just everything right out the gate was everything I was hoping for to get out of this movie from all the hype. Another big thing that I was hearing about the movie, which honestly just was what I was taking from this movie in the very beginning, was that this felt nostalgic. It felt like that high school teen film, just female and queer fronted. And honestly, it just blended perfectly, man. Again, from the tone to the chemistry of the two leads to the comedy with that, how well written the script was going into that, it was just impressive, man. It was everything that I thought it should have been. Though I will say this, the chemistry is there, and the tone is there, and, like, it's one of those things, though, where as far as the context of the scenes, that things just didn't really work with me. Things felt very over the top for the sake of being over the top, and things came off very awkward, not in the sense of, like, where it should have been awkward, but where things just don't really land right. But again, with how structured the chemistry and just the background of the film in general is, you always give it a pass. And with saying that, like, what's weird is that, so the comedy in this film, I felt that, like, the times where they were trying too hard, like, blatantly trying to make it out there and offensive and just over the top, was actually the times where it suited best with me.
Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
I just think that, as an overall layout, the comedy is definitely suited for a specific audience. And no, I'm not just talking about, like, Gen Z or, like, the LGBTQ community, but it's just one of those things where when you watch this film, you see that there is a layout that they're going for. And it's pretty interesting because this film, just as a film overall, it does feel like a set. Like, for example, one thing I found really funny is that Jeff, the jock, or like the main football guy, the film kind of like treats him as royalty, where they're not allowed to have pineapples in the school, that's like a big like offense and everything. The football players also sit at this like long table, kind of like how you see in like religious background, they have like a mural behind them. Again, they treat them like royalty, and I thought that was funny. I got it. I think it was fine enough, especially for a comedy and for a movie of this degree. But just as an overall layout of a film and just of a background, it didn't really ever like hit me. I thought that the message was there, and it was definitely, you know, like important and everything. And I think that this film, not necessarily what I call this a raunchy film, but as an over-the-top comedy, times where it wouldn't normally work in a comedy, where you're like, okay, I see that they're trying there, and it seems at times that like the comedy was coming off as shock value. Again, that sit with me because it was unexpected, it was over the top, not because it needed to be, but just because they could. And the stuff that they actually felt like they were trying with like little one-liners, they actually just were extremely clever and just fucking hilarious. And putting all this stuff aside, just the pacing of the movie, it just feels like it's a bit much. Not necessarily where the film itself is too much. I mean, the film just go like pretty out of bounds, which we will talk about, but it just feels like a movie that you really have to understand, a movie that you really have to be invested with for not only the story and the comedy and just everything to land with you, but again, just for how absurd this film ends up going in its execution. Like, I'll say this. I thought that a lot of stuff in the movie were fine, especially the leads. I thought the two main characters were absolutely standouts. I thought that their chemistry was good. I thought that the story, like the script, which I will actually note was partially written by Rachel Sennett, who is the main actress in this film. I just thought it was extremely unique. I thought it was impressive. I thought the matters that they ended up touching with, not just in general, but especially in the like latter half of the film, which we will talk about. I just thought as a piece, it is very mature. It has a lot of life in it. And it is an extremely relevant and self-aware movie. I just feel like the things I was most excited about delivered the weakest. Another thing that I want to note is the emotional depth in this film. So obviously with this kind of film, you know, with how it's being promoted and what it just seems like, you know, out of the trailers, out of the plot, and like obviously the reviews for it, you expect this film to have some emotional value that is going to land, but I was actually surprised to say that this was actually like one of the strongest aspects of the film, in my opinion. It's mature, it's honest, they really spend a lot of time focusing on that, and as the story unravels and you see things just kind of like come more like into frame, they really make that like the outspoken aspect of the movie. Now this was an aspect of the film that I was kind of teasing throughout the review. So getting toward the latter half of the movie, like toward that ending, it gets really intense, and I would actually say just gets fucking brutal, to the point where even someone who isn't turned off by this kind of stuff, but like as someone who went into this film like seeing it for what it was, expecting this to be like, you know, just kind of like the new teen comedy, holy shit, man. Like, not only with the emotional depth, like with that, but also just the brutality of like things addressed, also just where the film ends up going in conclusion. It's a lot, and I respect that it went to some degrees, but some stuff I just feel like it didn't really need to go that far. Like, it just kind of wasn't what I was expecting out of this movie. So the thing I'm going to say that I really admired was how heavy the film got in its, yes, empowerment. So not to spoil too much, but as the film kind of unravels, obviously, you know, there are going to be consequences from this fight club that the girls ended up creating, you know, what they were kind of selling it as to kind of get away with certain things, to kind of, you know, hide what they really wanted to get out of it, and kind of like what other people saw this fight club as, you know, as a self-defense thing for like, you know, women to go against like the football people that are kind of like running the schools that are kind of, you know, just treating women obviously like trash. That's another one of those things in the movie where I'm like, I expected to go down this route and like address certain matters, but like just the stuff. So toward the second, like to the last half of the film or so, shit really goes off the rails where you're actually like just seeing the blatant sexism and feminism in this movie, and like the stuff that, like the way that they addressed it, it is offensive, but it's just honestly how it is, man. And for them to go this route, like not necessarily like shining light upon, like I would say shining light upon, but like lack thereof, just addressing these topics, it just made the movie so much stronger and so much more mature and raw. And I just think that that was something that I'm happy that they spent so much time and so much like actual effort and realism just depicting. But also in saying all this, the things that I wasn't really a fan of, so like how I said earlier, there is like a lot of hints throughout the movie that it is kind of going for that shock value, and I think that like the message by the end of it, I understand it and I respect it, but just the bizarre and excessive route it went down, it just kind of had me like, huh. And especially by the end of the movie, just how mixed I was with everything and how kind of exhausting the whole like layout and kind of like grand scheme of the movie was. While I did think that the ending was very interesting and I liked how it overall like wrapped up and just kind of like, again, what it had to say, the excessive shock value and just everything in the movie that felt like it was trying to be too much, it just, by not only being an 88-minute comedy that I was actually pretty hyped for, but just everything that had been incorporated in this film and everything that I was, you know, kind of like, again, flip-floppy with, by the end of, like, getting toward the end of this 88-minute movie, I was just kind of exhausted, which is even more disappointing because, again, I just really liked the route that the movie ended up going toward with the, you know, with its last act. I just think in retrospect, overall, it's just a really bizarre and janky film, and I think that it goes toward like that, again, shock value aspect. I think it goes like a little bit far into that I think it needed to. It's an extremely self-aware, relevant movie, but I do think there is a target audience for sure. I just feel like the things I was most excited for in the movie delivered the weakest. I do see this more on like the mixed to fine aspect, but I gotta go with more on the mixed side for Bottoms. So that is gonna be my thoughts on Bottoms, everybody. For those that have already seen this film, because it was getting like selective like releases, for those that saw this film tonight or are seeing it this weekend, again, it is getting a lot of hype. There is a lot I liked about it, but it is just such a jam-packed movie with a lot of weirdness and a lot of over-the-topness and a lot of hit and miss that I would love to honestly hear everybody's opinions on this movie, but that is going to do it for my opinions on Bottoms. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie as well as the video down below, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys very soon, and with all that said, I hope you guys are having a great night. Take care.